price of eggs.
That's true.
Or milk.
That's true.
Or groceries that is based on the world market. Right? So I can have a balanced budget. We could even figure out a way from the state that we could increase our revenue share and gain more control over how we deal with revenue. But that's still not going to cap the cost of living and inflation. That has to come from the federal level at some point.
I don't disagree with that. You don't, when I say you, the city doesn't, change the cost of eggs, but you can change the amount of money that is coming into my house.
If I'm not collecting it, I can't.
Tell me more.
If I'm not collecting more money, right, to match what the cost of living is and delivery of service, even if you just start with charter-related services, there's a certain baseline that you have to operate that. Mm-hmm. That's based on what I collect and how much.
I agree with that.
And how much it costs to operate.
Yeah.
And if the wrench that I used to order from suppliers was $25 and now it's $300, mm-hmm. I don't control that. The world market controls that. Mm-hmm. That's capitalism.
Agreed.
So mm-hmm. I've been doing a great job at making sure I'm not passing on costs to you when it costs me $25 to buy that wrench or that screwdriver. Mm-hmm. Now it's $250 or $300. Mm-hmm. I got to buy it to fix the truck.
But I'm still.
So where does that? Who absorbs that cost? Or do you shut down the service?
Well, no. I think that two things can happen, two things should happen at the same time, right? I should have basic services. It's basic services, right? So yes, I should have.
I'm gonna say this to you, and I'll tell people: unless you can control inflation and what it costs people throughout the world, you can read Dr. Klein's book, Disaster Capitalism, the Shock Doctrine. Unless we can control inflation. Unless you can control inflation and worldwide costs, you can do the best job in your house, in your business, and in your city, and cost controls are still going to spiral out. The world market has to settle someplace. It is the way the world market is set up today. It's the only way the 2.5% can continue to amass wealth, and that is through crushing the middle class and the working class.
Exactly. So
the city can't solve that. The state can't solve that either.
You may not be able to solve it completely, but you can't just say we can't help you. We can't.
Okay, so the budget to operate general services is $1 billion, but based on cost and inflation, it's crushed our ability to collect that. We're only collecting $700 million. Mm-hmm. How does a broke city or any city, where do you make that up?
You don't. What do you mean? How do you can't just make up money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So either I pass on that cost to you, or do we do what? We cut the service.
Correct. But here's my thing. In this city, people prosper in the city. Some people. Some people, you can't tell me that some people are not prosperous.
That's capitalism 101. If when I see an area that's broke, that tells me a few people are doing really well because the money is going out of the community.
I agree, but I also think that leadership has to make sure that there is some kind of equity and some balance.
You're a businesswoman.
I am.
You've laid people off before. When your contract changed, why'd you lay them off?
Because there was not enough revenue to pay them.
Bingo.
Yeah.
You just answered the question.
Yeah, but I also, as a leader, I have had to make equitable, decisions.
You did keep that person on the payroll. They had to pay their rent. They had to pay their.
But I've also pulled people back. I've also gone out.
When the market got better, you got them back.
I went and got more contracts. But I also made sure that equity was always in play, right? I can't just say, just because I didn't get the revenue last year or last quarter, right? that doesn't necessarily always mean that I'm going to lay people off. That means that there are some internal things that I have to do to make sure that I keep my people.
Until you can't.
Until you can't. Yeah, that's true.
Municipal governments do the same thing.
But I think that's a part of being a business owner, right? I think the litmus test for a good leader is to make sure that you never get there. That you never have to lay off anybody. Right, sure. Worst case scenario, you do.
But in the Depression, every government at every level, every court, every municipal service laid off people during the Depression. They didn't want to.
Yeah, but again,
no. You're saying a good leader wouldn't lay people off. I'm saying during the Depression, we had some of the greatest leaders, but they laid people off.
Here's the thing, but we are not talking about laying people off. We're talking about people surviving. People, it's not like the city of New Orleans.
I love these kind of discussions.
It's not like the city of New Orleans can just say, I'm going to lay off all of
What were they supposed to do during the Depression when millions of Americans...
They fend for themselves, right? That's what they do.
But you're saying good leadership, and some of the greatest history of leadership came out of America with people learning to survive and carry on during that time. But your comment before that was, good leadership should have figured out how not to lay people off. They couldn't. It was the Depression.
Well, here's the thing. You have to, how do you emerge out of a depression? You just got to wait for somebody else to figure it out.
You had the WPA.
That's
you had the Works program. You had international and national corporations pouring into rebuilding and creating opportunity.
Yeah.
But guess where?
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, but the science around it didn't come from the government. It came from the titans who built this country, who laid infrastructure.
Well,
they were not elected officials.
Why can't you subscribe to?
They were not elected officials.
Why can't elected officials subscribe to what the titans did? Why can't we?
Capitalism versus government services.
Okay.
Read Jeff Goldsmith's book, the businessman who was the mayor of Indiana, who thought that you could use business principles to run municipal government. It's the same. When you're in business, you want to make a profit. When you're in government, you want to provide a service.
I agree.
That's capitalism 101.
I don't disagree that you should be providing services, but I also believe that you have to provide not just services, but programs. Because the programs are the things that are standing in the gap for the have-nots, right? And because the goal is to not always have the have-nots be the have-nots. In this city, we talk about our poverty rate in the city of New Orleans. It's always the same community that is at the bottom, right? And my question is, as a leader, is leadership? A part of leadership is to change and support lives.
So why is it
change lives?
So why is it always the same community at the bottom, and people still support the same people who put it at the bottom?
Nah, hey, you tell me. That's why.
No. You can't get away with that because
I'm not.
You have too many relationships with people, prominent people in office that you've supported and not supported, that you have friendships with, who are in government. And their philosophy and how they vote and how they act matters. So the decline of the black wealth, you know when the most drastic decline of black wealth started?
Do share.
In the middle of Landry. each of us can deliver. I will say this now, though, that I don't understand why the budget is so much bigger with the inability to deliver services. That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense that you can go from a pre-Katrina budget of $500 million with 500 million people but padded its budget while people were suffering with the inability to deliver services. But you got to take a, you can't just, you got to take a look.
And when I think about the voters, right, make it make sense for them, right?
And I'm the only one who's done that during the debate. So think about this, right? It's a $70 million hit to the general fund. You know that, right? The 30 million or projected million is based on accounts receivables. That could be anything, because guess what? If you start receiving them, what happens to that deficit? It's not there anymore. So for folk to talk about sounding the alarm around what receivables, that means you don't understand what the budget is. Because by December 31st, we're going to collect a whole lot more money of the 30 plus million that was owed. And in the first quarter, Super Bowl and Sugar Bowl and all of those people start traveling more from January to the springtime, all of the fest. Guess where all that money goes to? All that money goes into the budget. So you close the gap on the receivables, and that's how it's always been done.
So, okay, so now when I say make it make sense for the voters, right? Give them worst case scenario. What do they see? What is a
that's a great
average,
question. Yeah,
right?
When does budget deficits begin to affect the delivery of services? Right. At what point can't the government pick up your trash? Right. Potentially lay off and furlough people from critical departments. How does it affect that? And at what point does it affect that? And that's what we don't know right now. So it's irresponsible to create a climate of doom and gloom when you don't really know at the end of the day what is it. And that's why you don't hear me speculating or talking about worst case scenario, because we don't know what the worst case scenario is. So let's say we get to December 31st and we've collected enough money to close that gap. Then do you eliminate services? Do you eliminate personnel? Do you eliminate some departments that were created during the last two administrations that don't affect charter services? Then if you have to do that, you still get your trash picked up. You still have police protection. You still have safety and permits. You still have a recreation department. Because you have to look at all of those different things that were added that weren't there in the last 16 years.
Okay.
Period.
Okay.
So now, does that necessarily mean doom and gloom? No, not if you still can provide the services that people want.
I think so. So often, people are just trying to survive. They're trying to survive just with their own pockets.
Tell me about it. Tell me about
And so when many people, when they hear things about budget, many times it's alarming, but at the same time, they're like, look, y'all figure out your purse and I got to figure out my purse.
And I think that's what's unfair to people, right? Because the political class and governments, whether it's local government, state or federal government, that we figured out based on what we can take from you. Y'all got to figure it out based on what y'all lost, right? So governments are going to survive because you're still going to have that department, probably still have that elected official, you're still going to have that agency, but that everyday person, that business person had to lay people off, right? Maybe they lost their job. You know, they got to find a way to subsidize basic things of living, food, shelter. So that's the unfair part of it, right? Because the city budget could collapse, but you're still going to have City Hall.
Yeah, that's correct.
You know, you're still going to have officials. And so you live in a desperate time now because what people are seeing is that, hey, hold on a second, man. So you mean to tell me I got to give something up? But y'all only have to give something up that you give to me. And so people are like, nah, we want to see y'all suffer too. If I'm having trouble paying my rent, why you not having trouble?
Why are you not struggling? Why am I struggling and you not struggling?
And that's the big issue today, right?
Yeah.
So do I lose part of my salary? Do I have to lay off my staff?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Let's talk about the East. You know, I'm a New Orleans East girl.
I say, oh, absolutely.
Through and through. You know, when you think about when you were running for your district council, right? Spot. You had all of the plans, the platforms, similar to what you're doing right now, right? And you have people in New Orleans East that say nothing has happened in New Orleans East, right? And I think I know because I've seen kind of what happens behind the curtain. What happens as it relates to behind the curtain? What has stopped New Orleans East from moving forward?
Yeah, but you know, that's so cliche, right? Because there'll be something happening across the street and people will say, on the direct opposite, man, ain't nothing happening around here. What is happening across the street, which is in your area? And then that's cliche now. People are so down on government, so they'll say nothing is happening. Well, for the first time, we got the United Way Prosperity Center that after a year and a half of negotiations on Morrison and Crowder. You have an 11 million, you're gonna have the largest EV charging station and gas station and food court in the city on Crowder and Chef. When the Bourgeois Associates with his Louisiana, Texas investments just putting a new Smoothie King on Bullitt. Propel Park, $100 million investment next to NASA. They talked about Lincoln Beach for 8 years, but it didn't have a strategic plan to get funded until I got elected. 90% of Six Flags is demolished. So whether the developer moves forward or not, at least it's saleable now. Ross Studios has a lease to do his movie studio on that site. So that sounds like something's happening, right? But if you would ask the average person, ain't nothing happening. That's kind of cliche right now. So what happens behind the curtain, especially for me, is that I had to pick up a lot of things that folk were talking about and do the work behind the scenes to get them moving. Now, can I say I did all these things, but that one thing that you care about maybe didn't happen?
Maybe it didn't happen.
Because folk will say, well, we don't have a new grocery store. Well, but for the first time, I funded $2 million for the East End of Lower Ninth Ward. That's a total of $4 million. So you can talk about where a new fresh food market can go. Things don't always happen overnight, but the worst thing that happens is the stereotype that we spread and we believe it. Pash Patel is one of the owners of the Marriott Express. You know, you got a Marriott in New Orleans East now? You never had one. It's a Marriott. It's one of the top international brands in the world. He called me 3 weeks ago and he said, man, I wish they would stop. I said, Posh, what are you talking about? He said, man, Oliver, you know, we invested in New Orleans East and put this property here and put our brand on it because crime was going down. We're looking at the East going in the right direction. The police chief says we're leading in crime reduction. And people are saying ain't nothing happening in the East, and it's going to affect our bookings. Why are they online talking negative about a community where we see promise going in the right direction? So think about it. The first thing you opened up was, "It ain't nothing happening in the East." Why wouldn't we open up with, "We're leading in crime reduction"? We got a Marriott now, and we got $200 million of investment or more in the projects that I just named.
So where's the narrative coming from? Where's the negative narrative? Where is that coming from?
Unfortunately,
and why?
Unfortunately, it is a symptom of New Orleans. The one advantage and disadvantage I have is I play ball. I have to travel around the country and around the world. I always think about my friends from New York City. I never forget, D Boogie is from the Bronx. He talked about...
He sound like he comes from D Boogie.
Boogie talked about the Bronx like it was Beverly Hills. The first time I went to the Bronx, he lived in Fort Apache. I was like, oh, Lord. But he had a sense of pride in that community that in many cases that we don't show or have. How do you build on a negative? When New Orleanians in many cases lead with a negative. Now, why is that a contradiction? We break tourism records, unless there's a disaster or something happens, we break tourism records per capita. Man, we actually exceed our weight every year. Millions of people come here because they think we're the best. But we don't. So how do you balance that all these people, before COVID, 20 million people came here, more visitors per capita than just about any other place in the world, and a New Orleanian would lead with, man, why ain't nothing happening here?
I'm gonna push back on it. Because I think you can't say that people in New Orleanians don't have pride in their city. We absolutely do. We do. But I also think that our community has constantly, over the years, actually, I can't even say years, generation after generation, we have been the ones that have, delivered the golden eggs.
I'm gonna push back on that
for the city.
Right.
And here's the thing: nobody is actually feeding the goose that's dropping the golden egg. We're not doing that.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back on it because I'm New Orleans to the bone, for real.
And you don't believe you don't have pride for your city?
We got pride in our tradition and our culture.
Yes, we do.
We don't have pride in the city. New Orleans, we lead. I think this is one of the greatest places God put on this earth.
And we know that.
But in terms of the Civic City and how it operates, we are not confident, we have very little trust, and we don't have a very little pride. Now, there are a couple things that have to do that.
I agree with you on trust.
Because of the relationship, right? And because of what we see in terms of a third of our population has been at or below the poverty level for 100 years, and it's usually the largest demographic, the African-American population, and the distance in the relationship with our political class, our business class, and everyday people. We absolutely have pride in our culture, in our tradition here.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of pride in terms of the city. That's my take.
Let me just say this, my take on that is, I think we absolutely have pride in our city, the geographic city. What I don't believe that people have pride in is the city. The city. When I say the city, I'm talking about the city hall. Right, and the leadership in terms of that's in it. So I think that people don't necessarily have trust in that, in the entity right? Not necessarily to your. I think we're saying the same thing. I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. In many ways, we
But
are.
how do you?
So what is the next?
How do you mend that? Though?
Okay, and that's solvable, right?
How?
Because I think the political class has to come back home. I mean, you know, we got the song "Boots on the Ground," right? I don't believe there are relationships anymore. I like being in the community. You know, I don't drink, but I go to Margie's and I was at Broadway with Miss Dot on Sunday watching the Saints game, right? I'm probably the only person elected you're gonna see doing that, especially at a place out the way. But that used to be standard operating procedure. The political class and the folk who were elected didn't just socialize with us during election time. You could see them in the community. So there's a distance. I wrote a piece years ago around a theory that I have that I see America coming to democracy by subtraction, which means that the democracy is shrinking while we're subtracting more people. That's a whole reason why I wrote that piece based on history. But in that piece that I wrote, I said at some point, everyday people, we're going to need a passport to get to DC, Baton Rouge, or City Hall. That's how far away the political class is from everyday people. And political brokers, business people, people who have relationships with elected officials have allowed that to happen. You don't have to, man, I went to 20 events over the course of a part of this term. And now, you know, let's let the folk know, I was out of office for 14 years. I've only been elected 3.5 years. So a lot of this stuff that happened, I'm trying to come back to fix it because I've never seen it as dysfunctional now. But the political class has moved away from people. And for too many people, that's been okay. I don't think it's okay. So we actually do agree, based on the comment that you made earlier, we just have a different way of breaking it down.
So what did you see? You just talked about your 14-year gap, right? What did you see before your 14-year gap? And what do you see now? And where are the differences and where do we have
great question,
room for growth?
Yeah, that's, first of all, thank you for that question. That's an important one. I saw many people who were raised in the system, right? And I can use your family as an example, great educators. You know, I think you guys know how to teach and help people learn innately as part of a gene from your family. But y'all, you studied under one of the best and some of the best. I'm not saying that it was totally bad, but we had a lot of people that infiltrated politics without any training in terms of the system. I'm not saying it's bad, but you got a lot of people who are elected that understand what political bone is collected to what political bone, and there has been very little training. When I came back home the end of '86, and when I worked for Jim Singleton from 1990 to 1993. I had to go to workshops, I had to train. I watched him and Dorothy May Taylor and Joe Russo, and you had to be trained. As a legislative aide, you have to do research. Most people are amazed at how much I know about what was and what is. But they required that you learn the history of the city. Jim Singleton would send me to Amistad. I'll never forget, I did a piece he wanted to find out the parallels or the relationships between the city in the last 100, 150 years. And New Orleans was experiencing some of the same things. So to understand that and to research that, right, it was vital in terms of how he operated and how I operated in terms of understanding its relationship to the city and where we were. I don't see that. How many elected officials can you sit down and talk to and can tell you in 1910 Irish and Italian immigrants are slaughtering each other? 150 years ago, the city was faced with some of the same municipal problems that they're faced with right now. When the city started to expand in the early 1900s to add the Lower Ninth Ward and parts of New Orleans East and outgrowth, very few, but it's important if you're gonna leave. So for me, what I see different now is a lack of institutional knowledge, and in many cases, you don't have the right people in the right job. I don't think the plumber ought to be over the electrical department. And I don't think the painter ought to run the plumbing department. I think you need people with institutional knowledge and a work ethic that matches what we need right now. And that's how critical it is to me.
So you talk about history, because I know you are a historian. So when you look at New Orleans now, what is it comparable to historically? You know, and how did they, or maybe they
That's a
didn't,
really good
how did they
question.
come out of it?
Man, that's a really, 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 really good. But first of all, thank you. I love conversations where people can make you think, where you can have some pushback, where you can be thought-provoking. And I've met with talked to a lot of professional journalists and did a lot of interviews, and no one has put that. It is a direct relationship to what happened in the 60s, when the city went from over 600,000 people, and then you started to have white flight moving into the 70s. Great. And you're actually making me take a deep look at that right now in terms of how it's similar. We may not be losing 100,000 people, but we've lost 20 or 30,000 people. And in terms of the impact, it could really be the same, right? And that's a great great question, Jade. So I'm looking at that challenge right now. So how did they stabilize it? Well, during that time, up until Reagan came, when I kind of studied the history of population growth and population loss, then you had a lot of federal funds that helped mitigate some of the population loss. So it wasn't as drastic in terms of the hit that city services took. But you also had a more prominent middle class and working class where inflation and the cost of living wasn't a budget busters. It wasn't budget busters for them in their homes, and it wasn't for municipal government. So now the challenge now is, which makes it more dire, because back then that waiter could work at the restaurant and buy a house and save some money and send their kids to school and college. That waiter can be making more money right now, but they can't afford to live in the city. It's going to be very difficult for them to send their kids to college or private school. So our challenge now is, and I think it goes back to what you said earlier about more governmental responsibility. So our challenge now is, how do we mitigate that, right? How do we create a softer landing? And I think the way you do it is by making sure the city is open for business, create more opportunities for better wages, right? You do what you can to make sure that city services are delivered on time, and you protect certain classes. You may not remember, but I know your father will. When Dorothy May Taylor and Roy Glapion, whenever there was an issue where the city would have to maybe increase funds or put fees on people, they would cap it for senior citizens. Or they said, no, that group is not gonna be affected. And you really got me thinking. I think at some point, we're gonna have to take a deep look at how do we cap folk who shouldn't be affected and can't afford to be affected. Thank you for the question.
Last question, and I'm a kind of double click on what you just talked about, but I think part of, the responsibility of a leader is to give people vision.
Yeah.
Right? And I think right now, our people don't know what vision looks like for the city of New Orleans. This is my last question.
Yeah.
And it's going to be real wide open. What is your vision, and how are you going to ensure that people understand it? Not just for, campaigning, because that's what ends up happening. We hear about all of this stuff, on the front end, and then the people don't ever see the fruits of the vision, or not.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The first thing that I want to do is similar to what I've done for New Orleans East. Before I became the councilman, you didn't see New Orleans East leading in every discussion like it is now. I did that intentionally. I wrote a piece debunking the stereotype. They got 1 million reads. I knew I would have to take some hits about the East, but I knew it would be so prominent in terms of the discussion that people wouldn't ignore it anymore. Why? Because that's where I come from. Even though I represented Uptown several years ago, I grew up in the Lower Nine. Everything my family owns is in the Lower Nine in New Orleans East. The next leader is going to have to motivate our community, first of all, to know that we're worth it, and to know that they can have solutions and things can be done. And we desperately have to expand the footprint. We can't continue to tell the world that we're just the French Quarter, we're just the riverfront, we're just special events, and that we're just downtown. And as I go back to the earlier question that you asked, it's really clear and makes more sense to me now. We were able to do okay in spite of in the past because it wasn't just about the quarter and downtown. We were proud of our ward, our neighborhood, where we came from. The next leader is going to have to infuse that, but also demand that investment and opportunity be built on our assets. So think about this as someone who grew up in New Orleans East. 7,000 acres of developable business land in New Orleans East. Accessed by railway and interstate from Jacksonville to Santa Monica. 27 subdivisions of the highest African American earners of any municipal district. 9.5 miles of waterway, 5 of those 9 miles of beachfront. 2 of the busiest waterways in North America.
It's a gold mine.
The intercoastal and the industrial. They feed the 33 state tributary system. Why aren't we building shipping along those waterways that feed the middle America? Can't survive without them, right? Why aren't we taking advantage of ecotourism and growth along our natural topography, our waterways, and our natural canopy, right? Bayou Sauvage is the largest wildlife refuge in North America. 340 bird species. The largest migratory period. The largest migratory period. Now, you can't talk to anybody else like that like you talk to me. So if ecotourism is the fastest growing or the fastest industry in the world, who can do it better than us? Calvin Mackey and STEM NOLA, NASA. If we can have a biomedical center downtown, why can't we have a research and biomedical research district, right? That the state and the mayor create around what Calvin Mackey is doing, around what NASA is doing. We had a mayor who didn't sign the taxing incentive district for New Orleans East. He refused to sign it. If I'm mayor, we're going to create special districts for growth. We're going to expand our footprint. And we're going to debunk the stereotype. When the city had 17 years of 300 and 400 murders, guess where half of them used to happen? In Central City. Did you ever hear them stereotype that community? That community used to be majority African American. Now it's only 49%.
Right.
Go try to buy something in Central City now. But why would they stereotype New Orleans East now when we're leading in crime reduction? When we have growth, when you have a Marriott, when you have $200 million worth of investments that's happening in different sectors of the East. And I used to not be a conspiracy theorist because I thought OJ did it, but I know people do conspire. What's the best way to take over a place? Run it down, stereotype it, and move the people out. God ain't making no new land. Somebody gonna come along or wants to come along one day and discover New Orleans East like Columbus discovered America, where somebody told him hello.
You got the last word. That's it. Drop the mic.
You are an awesome interviewer.
Good job.
You good, girl.
Oh yeah, man.
You made me go. But Jade, you made me go all the way back to the '60s in a parallel. So I gotta adjust really my thinking now, because how did we come out of losing hundreds of thousands of people?
My grandmother.
That was good.
My grandmother always told us, "There's nothing new."
There's nothing new. And who always says that? I tell people, ain't nothing new.
There is nothing new.
Just like the state trying to take over the city. They did it with Dutch.
You see what I mean? And so I'm like, many people don't realize. That's why I love the fact that
Wait. Oh, for the camera.
Oh, okay.
Y'all are doing great.
Oh, are we supposed to be looking?
Yeah, look at it.
Okay.
That was good.
like we can't miss history. That's why I love like having conversations with you, just
was
around
nice.
history,
Yeah.
because this is not new.
No, it's
it
not
might be
new.
new to us,
Yeah, it's not.
but it's not new. Nothing under the sun.
Well, but the problem is, if I may, when you have the end of a two-term mayoral administration,
Yeah.
Landrieu, Hagan, Morial, what have you. Depending on how it lands,